Welcome back to Myth Mentality. I am your host, Justin A.Williams. I'm going to take off my sunglasses, even though it's a sunny, beautiful day. I want to look you in the eye as we talk about a very, very interesting topic in myth, which is how to escape the underworld, right? There's been a few beings in mythology, mainly in Greek mythology, but not only in Greek mythology, that have had to challenge the underworld. Now, what is the underworld? The underworld is not necessarily the monotheistic conception of hell. The monotheistic conception of hell mainly comes from what Jesus was talking about in the New Testament, where he talks about a specific place that is quite hellish to individuals of high intellect and high spiritual knowledge. Now, that could be a controversial comment, and I don't mean it to be for any Christians out there. I used to be one of them. But in the Christian conception of hell, they also managed to merge in the ancient Greek conception of hell, which is Tartarus. Tartarus, or the place that is deep in Hades, is a place of eternal punishment. Punishment for those who defy the laws of the gods, right? So that's kind of from there. I mean, even in the New Testament, in the original translations, Hades is the word that is used. So, not hell. Hell actually is more of a Saxon Norse word. In fact, their goddess is called Hel. But in that underworld, again, it is not a place of eternal torment and torture. It is a place where, like in Sheol, in the Jewish tradition, of deep contemplation, entrapment, you are there forever, or a specific amount of time. And I would say a place where you are allotted based on what you've done in life. So let's talk about some characters that were able to actually escape said situation and what happened. Now, there are a lot of them. We could go to Sisyphus, we could go to Hermes, we could go to Dionysus. But let's start off with one of my favorite stories of the underworld, which is the story of Osiris, right? So Osiris is put into the underworld because he's murdered by his brother. And despite the efforts of his magician queen wife, Isis cannot come back to life. Unfortunately, he goes to the underworld, but he becomes the ruler of said area, the adjudicator of who becomes the everlasting, the ever-living in Rostro, a place that is supposed to be heavenly for mortals, or those that will be absolutely obliterated by Amit, the devourer, the abyss, that they will lose themselves in shadow and never be seen again. Now, these type of stories teach us about an inner journey, the internal life, the internal hell that we put ourselves through. Oftentimes, we are not good to ourselves. Oftentimes, people are not good to us. And when that happens, we get in a situation where life will feel like hell. We'll feel like we're being punished. We'll feel like we're punishing ourselves. And we'll feel like it's a darkness that is inescapable. And we sometimes feel like we deserve it. But we rarely tell ourselves when good things happen that we deserve those good things. And that good things happen because we are in a heavenly state. I find it funny how I've done the same thing in my life. How oftentimes I have punished myself beyond reckoning, beyond due, beyond justice, because of a perception of deserving it. And I think characters that have escaped the underworld have all escaped because they find deep meaning in purpose. Their escape is not simply to escape the current condition. That's easy, right? Their escape is timed and done by the purpose of why they are doing it and why they are escaping. Dionysus, in a rare story in the Orphic traditions, escapes hell, Hades, because he's looking for his mother. His mother died when he was born in the stories, after Zeus reveals his true form to her, unfortunately, due to Hera. And Dionysus was searching for a part of himself. He's searching for, like all would, to save someone that he loves and he cares for, even without knowing them. That's true sacrifice. That's true altruism. You see that? That will get you out of your hellishness and your situation. by loving and caring for someone else, by loving and caring for someone you never even met, but you can just feel it. Hermes is a traveler, a psychopomp, who often guides the dead into the afterlife. In some Orphic traditions, he does meet with Persephone, and he is her escort every season of spring and summer out of the underworld. And I'm sure it's a treacherous journey. It's not easy to do such a thing when the ghosts and ghouls and goblins come out and Cerberus is staring you down in the face, the three-headed dog of the underworld, and Hades is displeased. Hades, the ruler of a place that's so powerful in him that he named it after himself. So when we think about characters that have gone to the underworld, think about the story in Japanese tradition, Azumi Izunami, where the male god goes to the underworld to retrieve his wife, but he becomes a coward. He sees his wife and sees that she is decrepit, she's died, and she has formed into more of a ghastly, ghostly figure, befit of the underworld. And unfortunately, that fear he shows her that he no longer loves her like he once did, and he flees, and she is heartbroken. So see, not every journey is going to end in a heroic narrative. Not every journey is going to empower us. What would be left for the god in that situation to redeem himself? Well, like anybody who's dealing with their own internal underworld or external, what they need to do is they need to find that courage again. They need to find the place where they are no longer feeling as though they are trapped in an emotional state where they are going to do what you should never do, which is judge somebody else as if you would not be judged yourself. That is the main thrust of any mythology and of any story of the underworld, because the underworld usually, and this is true in whether you're talking about ancient Greek tradition, Japanese, Egyptian, or even Christian, monotheistic, there is a place of judgment for you, a place where your life will be read out before you, and you must submit yourself to the ruling of a higher power. Now, in my estimation, I don't think this is something to be afraid of. And I know a lot of people operate in a system of fear because of this, and thus punish themselves. I think this judgment, and excuse me, I'm a little out of breath, I am rucking today. Exercise is great, helps the mind. But to be in a position of judgment is not to say that someone is going to castigate you or whip you down like a bad parent or a bad teacher would. It's to say that, imagine the teacher that once told you, you got a C because you worked hard enough to get a C, and that's what you deserve. Had you worked harder, had you worked better and smarter, had you come to the teacher before the test, had you done the right steps, you surely would have gotten an A. And I think that's a great lesson for anybody dealing with fear of the afterlife. It's that you will get what you put in for. What you put in for, it will come back to you. The gods often talk about in different stories and in different traditions, they meet you halfway. You put in half the effort, they will combine that with their effort, right? It's like what Paul says in the New Testament, faith without works is dead. So as we go on our journey, I'm on my journey today, my walk, we must think of not the undue reckoning of angry gods and our angry self and the memories and the trauma. We must think of the things that liberate us. We must be more like a character that you may find in myth or religion or anywhere, even in your lives, that inspires you to overcome the inner journey, right? In Islam, they talk about the jihad is external and internal. In Buddhism, we talk about merciful understanding, that you must be merciful with yourself. In Buddhism, we do not see evil and good. We often see sweet and sour, and that the extremes of both are what lead us to toxicity. So as we wrap up this journey that we've been on for now 9 minutes roughly, I want you to know that though I am an author and I care about whether my book, Reborn: Virtue's Constellation, available on Amazon and Barnes & Nobles and other places, is what uplifts you, uplifts all people who read it. I want them to know that there's great messages in this book about how to overcome our personal hell, our personal Hades, our personal underworld, and to escape. Because escape is difficult. There's many characters from South American traditions, Aztec traditions, Native American traditions, African traditions, and more that routinely travail the underworld. Some are allowed to leave, and some are not supposed to leave. But all who leave are changed forever. You cannot travail, you cannot wanderlust, you cannot journey without risking that you will be changed. And when you are transformed, you should embrace that transformation, because it is really, as maybe the Greek god Apollo would say, it is revelation. It is the revelation of the truth that you did not know about yourself, that was hidden deep down, but that you always realized could be there. Now, this does not scare you. This should not make you think that you will become the opposite of who you are. If anything, you should trust that you will just become more and more of the best parts of yourself. So seek transformation. Seek the thing that challenges you. And always remember, like I told my students when I was a teacher, the obstacle is the way. Thank you. That's Myth Mentality for today. See you later. Be reborn.